Hello, and welcome to another Supplierty News podcast. I'm Jamie White, and today I will be walking you through a initiative that has been launched by Citi over the past, month or so, a month and a half, targeting Black and minority individuals. I guess what would be considered minority individuals. So Asian American, African American slash Black, Latinx, as well as Native American. Okay. So, as you can see before me on my screen, uh, everything that I'm going to be discussing about this new city initiative really comes from the a research paper that was posted a couple of, like about a month and a half ago, almost 2 months, entitled Closing the Racial Inequality Gaps, the economic cost of black inequality in the United States. So, as you can see, it's a rather lengthy paper, about 104 pages. Probably most of that, obviously, is introduction and cited sources, but still, this has gotten a lot of traction over the past month and a half. So I decided that it may make sense to kind of cover it, walk you through some of the key points that they've mentioned, and let's talk about it and see. I've decided. I will point this out. I've decided that I'm not going to kind of give my comments on this or anything, but just simply kind of walk through what they have here, some of the things that may be good or not good. I'm sorry, because again, I'm not going to walk through it, but just some of the things that they've highlighted here, so that you may be able to better understand kind of what they're targeting. So, um, the bulk of the research paper is really centered around this kind of number here, which it says not addressing racial gaps between blacks and whites has cost the U.S. economy up to 16 trillion over the past 20 years. So as you can see here, the argument is that not only is racism bad, obviously we can all agree to that, but it's also a financially inefficient way to really grow our economy, and due to things such as like systematic racism and things of that nature, we're actually costing America as a whole tons and tons of revenue that can be something that can be put towards the economy so that way we are continuing to grow. So with this 16 trillion that's been cost over the past 20 years, they kind of break it down into different levels. Closing the black wage gap could have added 2.7 trillion in incomes, or 0.2% to GDP per year. 0.2% GDP is huge. Just in case you're wondering, so that is pretty interesting. Um, Facilitating easy access to higher education for black students could have increased lifetime incomes 90 to 113 billion. Improving access to housing credit might have added an additional 770,000 black homeowners, adding 218 billion in sales and expenditures. And then providing fair and equitable lending to black entrepreneurs might have resulted in the creation of an additional 13 trillion in business revenue and potentially created 6.1 million jobs per year. So, as you can see, that's kind of the rundown in terms of the what the crux of the argument is, which is this. Not only is this a bad thing, et cetera, things like that. This is really a financial burden that is costing America as a whole trillions and trillions of dollars over the long term. There's also an estimate. Let's see if it has it here. Here it is. If these racial gaps were closed today, we could see 5 trillion of additional GDP over the next 5 years. So, and obviously within the research paper, they kind of go through how they got to these numbers and what this could mean in the future, as well as ideas in terms of how you could potentially combat this so that we can gain those 5 trillion. So, and kind of knowing this, I just wanted to kind of highlight this particular piece because this is the crux of the argument. Once again, that 16 trillion. Now, let's go all the way back. So, kind of what is Citi doing to, have a positive impact on this? As you can see from the page here, Citi launches more than 1 billion in strategic initiatives to help close the racial wealth gap. So I will start out. While the argument is more so around kind of black issues, African American issues in America, the solution, while it does speak towards how they can assist the black community, it does encompass more than the black community. So once again, when I kind of mentioned that, Asian American, Latinx, and or Hispanic American, as well as Native American. So there are some pieces that are specifically for Black society, if you will, and then there's some other pieces where they talk about certain things that they're already doing, and they're putting more dollars to those initiatives in order to increase the impact on there. So there's a couple of goals. I believe there's 4 goals that they are trying to do with this. So I'll just kind of go over the overview real quick before we get into exactly what Citi is trying to do to assist in this. So Citi and the Citi Foundation today announced more than $1 billion in strategic initiatives. We kind of already mentioned that. Citi's action for racial equity is a comprehensive approach to, and it kind of breaks down the 3 pieces, and then it kind of goes over the big kind of commitments over the next 3 years, which is $550 million to support home ownership for people of color and affordable housing by minority developers. So again, it includes Black society, but it also kind of expands that to people of color. $350 million in procurement opportunities for Black-owned businesses. So kind of these 2 right here are specific to Black-owned, so about $400 million specifically targeting Black society. $100 million to support minority depository institutions, growth and revenue generation, and then $100 million in Citi Foundation grants to support community change agents addressing racial equity. So to kind of go through this, kind of what this means, I already showed you this report. That's really what they've kind of focused on. But let's go ahead and let's kind of break it down on a go-by-go basis. Once again, they have 4 goals. The first goal here is expand banking and access to credit in communities of color. Kind of break down how they do that. So at the top, they mentioned that they are going to give about $100 million towards this initiative. Towards this particular goal, which is the minority depository institutions, basically minority-owned banks and credit unions. That's basically what that means. So they have 2 kind of pieces to that. The first is they want to give up to $50 million in growth capital to strengthen their ability to serve racially diverse households and entrepreneurs. Basically, what this sounds like is they're going to give them $50 million, and then most likely have some type of, hey, we want you to give this to, as you can see, minority individuals who are seeking, a home to purchase a home, or entrepreneurs that are seeking to either start or expand their business, and to generate revenue for MDIs by inviting them into up to $50 million in loan participation opportunities between the Citi Community Capital Division and the institutional clients group and its clients to finance affordable multifamily rental housing. So once again, they're going to give the money, most likely say, hey, this money needs to go towards these types of projects or needs. And then they also, Citi has their own pieces that they target that they will give $50 million, it appears, to allow them to loan out, which is fine. Then they go into other pieces as well, providing pro bono technical assistance and training to MDIs. Partner with community organizations serving racially diverse households, the cities. Consumer bank to expand access to Citi access account package, which includes low cost checking and savings products. And they kind of just go more so towards that. Removes out of network fees at Citibank's ATMs, which is always nice when you're out of network. To not get charged that extra fee. And then lastly, put 1 million youth on the path to higher education by expanding the Citi Start Savings platform. So let's see, Citi Start. No, that's not the one. This is kind of like all over the place. Not sure if I was able to. Yeah, here it is. So let's go up here. Let's move this over here so it's a little bit closer to what we're talking about. Okay. So for the 1 million youth on the path to higher education, I thought this was pretty interesting. So I took a little bit more, deeper look to see exactly what this was. Apparently, they currently, as you can see in San Francisco, they actually already have this, where basically any child in their, I forgot as they're starting kindergarten, Citi puts $50. As you can see here. If you're a part of the kindergarten to college, I believe, kindergarten, here it is. Let's just read this because that's kind of where I'm getting this information from. Xavier and his peers are joining some 34,000 other students participating in kindergarten to college, which is the Citi initiative. the nation's first universal youth savings account program. A K2C account containing an initial $50 incentive is open for every child who enters the San Francisco public school system. Additional incentives are awarded over time for making more deposits or positive behaviors in school. In 2011, the San Francisco Treasurer's Office developed K2C with support and assistance from Citi. Today, this innovative initiative is sponsored and administered by the City and County of San Francisco. So basically, it appears as if they're working with the city. Once again, when a student starts kindergarten, $50 is put into that savings account. Now, I'm not exactly sure what that rate is. So as you can see, obviously, I actually don't know how old you are when you first start. But if we go K to 12, which is basically your entire high school, that's 13 years, because if you include kindergarten is 1, first grade is 2, and et cetera. So you basically have about 13 years for this to kind of accumulate over time. A $50 incentive, that's where they decided to start, and then obviously, like they mentioned, you do get incentives if you decide to put more towards that. It's a start in terms of how to impact that piece. I understand what they're trying to do here, and if they're looking to expand it, any type of money that you're getting for free is always is something, and it's a good start. So I can understand kind of where they're going from. I don't know, if they expand it, how they're going to do that. If they're going to connect with other cities, are they going to compensate other cities who may not be able to afford $50? I really don't know, but it's interesting that they're going to target 1 million youth and try to assist in helping them go to college in any way that they can, especially since they're starting with about 34,000. This may have grown, but it's going to be interesting to see kind of how they go through that. But again, any type of start where you're getting some type of finances and savings and kind of growing that is a good start. Obviously, you would always like to see as much as possible, but good start. I have no problem with that. Goal number 2 is invest in Black entrepreneurship. So why it matters to kind of break it down here. Black-owned businesses have long faced obstacles in obtaining loans. They are the most likely to apply for bank financing but get turned down at twice the rate as white business owners. The financing gap is especially pronounced in the startup world, where studies show that Black entrepreneurs receive only 1% of venture capital funding. All terrible statistics. So how is Citi going to try to assist in improving these stats? Number 1, they're going to allocate an additional $50 million in the Citi Impact Fund exclusively to support businesses by Black entrepreneurs. Citi kicked off the fund in January with $150 million in capital for businesses that are developing solutions to social and environmental changes. So it sounds as if, basically they're just going to include an additional, well, not just $50 million is a lot. They're going to include $50 million to this fund exclusively for Black-owned businesses. So this is kind of where we're focusing specifically with Black society. Citi will also increase business procurement spend with certified diverse suppliers from $700 million to $1 billion, including $250 million with Black-owned firms. So they're already spending $700 million, which means that if $250 million. So I actually don't know how they're going to increase Citi business procurement spend with certified. I don't know if so from 700 million to $1 billion, that's 300 million. So I don't know if they're saying 250 of the 300 million will be spent with Black-owned firms, or if they're saying within the 700 million, maybe 100 million is being spent with Black-owned firms. So they're just going to try to get to 250 million with Black-owned firms. Period. Not exactly sure what that means, but regardless, 250 million is huge. It's going to be interesting to see how they do that and how they target that. Anytime you do these types of initiatives, while you also want to support these minority businesses, Black-owned businesses, in this instance, ensuring that the process is treated fairly and whatnot is going to be key to ensuring that this works correctly. But again, I 100% support this, and this is pretty interesting. Lastly, when it comes to businesses, they are looking to launch a new program called Citi Start Credit SM, which will work with community development financial institutions to help underserved entrepreneurs increase their credit scores and access more affordable credit. Couldn't really find where this was. I tried to look for this. Couldn't really see where they were going with this. I didn't understand if they were how they're going to do this is if they're just going to give education on kind of how to increase your credit score, or if they were actually going to talking about giving businesses lines of credit, or people lines of credit in an effort to increase the credit score. So I wasn't exactly clear on this, but I'm pretty sure with more information that comes from Citi Start, we'll know more. So apologize for not being able to give more information on that one. Goal 3 is invest in affordable housing and promote the growth of Black ownership. For this one, Black home ownership is at its lowest level since the 1960s, so they are looking to obviously increase that. So for Citi, I have a couple points here. Number 1, they want to expand the U.S. Consumer Bank community lending team and its network of correspondent lenders to increase access to Citi's mortgage products and services among minority borrowers and low and moderate income neighborhoods. So, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. They don't put a number to this. They just say increase access to Citi's mortgage products. So not exactly sure kind of how they're going to go this. But for the next point, they want to provide $200 million of equity and preferential financing through Citi community capital to affordable and workforce housing projects by minority developers. So basically, again, that's another kind of self-explanatory. But as you can see here, some of this funding also will be invested in minority developers to build their capacity and allow them to compete for larger, affordable housing projects. So they're really focusing on affordable housing projects, like they said, and hoping businesses get capital in order to build these or work on these housing projects. That's really the key when it comes to this piece. Pretty interesting. Once again, this is the goal 3, trying to give access to Black home ownership, in particular, investing in affordable housing to do this. Again, the 200 is a clear goal. This one, increase access to Citi's mortgage products. Not exactly sure what the end goal of that is. However, it's there, so this is probably something that they want to do and they want to expand. Probably just thinking through how to exactly do that in terms of a numbers perspective. Goal 4, strengthen Citi's policies and practices in order to become an anti-racist institution. In my opinion, this is the most I can't think of the word, but this is something that, like, trying to create any type of organization and making it anti-racist is the biggest challenge. There it is. This is the most challenging of any of the initiatives. They do walk through how they want to do this. This is something that no one's really figured out exactly to date. However, there are a lot of organizations that are looking to combat this as best as possible and to make a positive impact. And for that, I salute it. All organizations trying to do this. For Citi, this is how they want to implement their strategy around creating an anti-racist institution. I'm just going to go through this real quick. They want to strengthen due diligence processes for project-related financing to address environmental justice and social impacts on communities of color. So it sounds as if they're going to do more research around kind of how they can better themselves at this due to social impacts, justice and social impacts, environmental justice. Develop standards for inclusive software design that eliminate bias and help deliver equitable outcomes for the communities Citi serves. So they're even going to go as far as trying to make sure that their technology is taking into account biases that may be happening. Expand Citi's capital market activities with minority-owned broker-dealers. Assisting with their business and franchise development. So once again, giving more minority own organizations and institutions opportunity to increase their development. Work with marketing, communications, and legal to establish guidelines that increase representation of people of color on Citi's accounts and within their leadership teams. So workforce, trying to increase diversity there. in key areas like leadership. And then lastly, establish a council of senior leaders from across the company to develop additional product innovations and hold businesses accountable. So all the goals that they're, and that's key here. Hold businesses accountable. The fact that they have that means that these goals they're trying to do, it appears as if they're going to have people checking these goals and making sure that they're hitting them, and if not, holding people accountable, which is really the key out of all of this. This is really the main key. While targets and goals and initiatives are nice to have, if nobody's being held accountable for them, they oftentimes don't work. So that language in there is definitely a positive step in the right direction for sure. A positive. With that being said, there are also other things that they're doing that they kind of put at the very end. For example, the Citi Foundation is making a new $5 million grant to living cities to provide U.S. mayors with access to technical expertise. They do kind of target a couple of cities that they are looking at. The Citi Foundation also is expanding employability and entrepreneurship efforts serving Black youth as part of a new 3-year, $100 million investment in the successful Pathways to Progress initiatives. So we're going to click on that. I didn't mean to do that, but so they kind of here is where they mention where they're targeting and how they're trying to do this. As you can see, they started in 2014 with an initial $200 million globally, and they're just looking to expand that and continue along those lines. So if we go back, let's go all the way back down. Over the past decade, Citi and Citi Foundation have invested nearly $100 million in programs, with renewed attention on racial equity in the U.S. and around the globe. Citi donated an additional $10 million to Black-led organizations fighting for racial justice. And kind of just going down in terms of everything that they're doing. And then at the very end, they talk about the website. Here it is, Action for Racial Equity. Most of this is kind of what they mentioned in this page here. So if you were to click on, let's say, invest in Black entrepreneurship, kind of just go through it what exactly we were just talking about. So they do have a little bit something different here, which I thought was interesting. Once again, we already talked about this, which is the $16 trillion that could have been added to the economy if racism was combated. So, with that being said, this is kind of the breakdown of the Citi, their new $1 billion initiative to combat the racial wealth gap. I'm going to have these links in the video as well. So if you want to kind of take a look at the entire research paper, you can go ahead and do so. I may, depending upon the feedback that I get from this, I may go a little bit more in depth, just, depends. Or I may take a look at other initiatives that have come out in the past year to just kind of talk through them so that you can understand, all the things that they're targeting and if there may be, any type of opportunity for you as well. So with that being said, I'm going to stop here. Thank you so much for your time. This was a rather lengthy video, I believe. Okay, about 20, 25 minutes. But regardless, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment if you like the video. If you have any questions, let me know. And as always, thank you so much for your time and have a great day.